So today's painting adventure starts with a ferry ride from Sorrento. It's one of those perfect Mediterranean mornings. The sea is calm, the air is warm, and the colours out here are just incredible. And I always love this part of the journey. You get to see these sweeping views of the coastline, the cliffs dropping right into the water. And it's the kind of light that makes you want to unpack your paints immediately. But I managed to resist until we get to shore.
Hey guys, buongiorno, and today I'm here in Amalfi. I've taken a ferry from Sorrento and it's been a really scenic ferry ride, lots of beautiful views. The scenery around here just looks like it's been made to paint. We're going to explore Amalfi a little bit and then I'm going to do a painting here, and we're getting a ferry back to Sorrento at 5 p.m, which gives us quite a few hours to explore, to relax a bit, and for me to paint. So my first time here in Amalfi, and the weather's good, much better than it said it would be on the BBC weather app, which is nice. Sun's out, and yeah, it's incredibly beautiful here. So first stop, got a bit of food before I paint, some sort of fish and chips, and a little cone which I think is traditional to this part of Italy. It looks pretty good.
So I found a quiet spot overlooking the harbour, and it's exactly the kind of scene that I'd been hoping for, and it's not too busy like it was in that sort of central street of Amalfi, which was just absolutely heaving. And I'm using my Craft Geek easel again today, and I really love how sturdy and compact it is, especially for travelling. So if you've been thinking about getting one for yourself, you can use my discount code to get 15% off your order with the code Frederick, and I've put a link in the description, so do follow that link if you'd like to get one of these.
So I've set up here in Amalfi. I really love this view. You get those iconic buildings going up the cliffside. You also get this headland further in the background where you can see that sort of atmospheric perspective coming into play. It's a bit sort of bluer and sort of pushed back in space, which will add a nice sense of depth to the painting. And also you've got these boats in the foreground catching the sunlight. I don't know how many of these boats here in the immediate foreground that I'll paint. I may not paint them in, but definitely some of these white boats in the midground. I think this is a really beautiful scene to paint. It's probably going to take me a while. It's quite a complicated scene. There's a lot of details going on. So I'm going to be trying to simplify it as much as possible and then see how many details I can add in the time. So I'm catching a ferry back at 5 o'clock. So I'm going to see what I can do. Remember, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel, and let's start painting.
I start the painting by toning my linen canvas with raw umber paint, and this gives me a light, warm, brownish yellow imprimatura to work on top of. And then, still using raw umber paint, I sketch in the big shapes, the foreground headland where all these iconic Amalfi buildings sit, and the background headland further away, which also takes up a large part of the composition. And I even map in the structure of a cloud that's looming over this distant mountain. Whilst the imprimatura is still wet, I take advantage of this and I rub back some areas with a tissue to bring out the lightest sections of my composition. And at this stage, I'm really trying to simplify everything into big shapes of light and dark. And there's a huge amount of detail in a scene like this, and it can quickly become overwhelming. So I'm squinting and looking for broad masses rather than individual buildings and windows and things like that. So I've wiped back the canvas where the buildings will go, and I'm treating them as one large light shape, not as separate structures yet. And I also wipe away some paint where the cloud is, since this is one of the lightest parts of the composition. Once everything is mapped in, I begin painting the cloud in more detail. I start with the shadow sections, which have this purplish hue, and I mix in titanium white, ultramarine blue, and a touch of alizarin crimson, and a small touch of raw umber. For the light sections of the cloud, I use a separate colour mix consisting mostly of titanium white with a small touch of cadmium yellow to create this warm glow. I also mix an intermediate colour mix for the edges and the transitions between the shadows and the lights. And I'm thinking of the forms within the cloud as sort of little 3D spheres, and they're darker as they turn away from the light source. This helps give the cloud volume rather than it looking flat. Next, I paint in the rest of the sky. I begin with the light areas using a warm light mix consisting of titanium white with a very small touch of alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue and raw umber, but predominantly titanium white. And then I work the blue sections around this. Higher up, the blue becomes a bit stronger, where there's less of these atmospheric clouds interfering. So I use cobalt blue with a tiny bit of raw umber and titanium white to create this nice pale blue. Then I move on to this distant headland. I mix a blue-grey colour, and I try to keep it from going too dark because it is far away and therefore needs some sense of atmospheric perspective. But I also don't want to paint it too light, because having a slightly darker shape behind the bright light buildings gives a lovely contrast that makes them pop out in the sunlight. And I'm keeping this section simple as it's in the distance, so you wouldn't see too many small details, but I do pick out a few areas of the cliff face that are catching the light. With this in place, I begin refining the Amalfi buildings. I start by dropping in the shadows, just enough to establish which planes face the light and which turn away. I then build up the lights with titanium white and a touch of yellow ochre to get that warm glow from the Mediterranean sun. And I vary the mixture slightly. Some buildings are a bit pinker and others are a bit more yellow, so I try and capture the pastel colours of the buildings. Then I add in the terracotta rooftops and a few darker accents for windows and doors and archways within the buildings. I then move down to the sea, which has this beautiful blue hue to it, and I start with the right hand side of the painting because the left will be filled with reflections from the buildings and a few more boats, so I want to paint the blue water in first. And the sea is lightest in the distance, so I use a lighter blue mix using titanium white and cobalt blue. And as the water comes closer to the foreground, it darkens and takes on a slightly more purplish hue, so I add touches of alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue, as well as a few touches of raw umber. And I'm still using that sort of base mix of titanium white and cobalt blue. And in the foreground you get the strongest contrasts, the real darks and lights of the ripples, where the distant water appears to be a bit more flat. And once that's in, I paint the first boat. I pay close attention to where the light is hitting it, and the sun is sort of coming from the right hand side, so that's where I reserve the lightest lights. I also paint the reflection underneath the boat, and then move over to the harbour on the left hand side and add a few more little speedboats along with the reflections of the rippling sea. And when painting the reflections, it's important to remember that they mirror what sits above them, but due to the movement of the water, they will be distorted, and you'll get these lovely swirly curving patterns within the reflections. And I also leave a bit of this sort of brown imprimatura showing through the brushstrokes, as it adds a subtle vibration to the reflections and also stops my brushstrokes from feeling overworked.
I hope you've enjoyed that video of me painting here in Amalfi in Italy. It's been a really beautiful place to paint. Quite a lot of details and complexities going on in the scene, but I'm happy with the result. So if you enjoyed that, please give me a thumbs up and do subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll see you in the next video.